Welcome to the Confidence Through Health podcast. My name is Jerry Snyder. As a health, wellness, and sports performance coach, my goal each week is to bring you experts to help you take control of your health and build your self-confidence. Thanks for including me today on your journey to better health. As an elite level runner and coach, I'm excited to introduce you to the All In Running Club. The All In Running Club exists to help you become a better runner. Whether you're a beginner, an elite runner, or anywhere in between, the mission of the All In Running Club is to give you the tools you need to find your success in running. Join today to take advantage of the 75% off yearly membership rate offer. Click the link below in the show notes to learn more. So I want to thank you, Torkil, for being a guest on the Confidence Through Health podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Jerry. So interesting I've been listening to like 3 or 4 of your episodes, so it's really interesting podcast. Yeah.
Well, thank you. So, as you know, then I try and bring people information that's going to help them take control of their life and take control of their health so that they can have a better life and have that confidence through being healthier. And the heart rate variability stuff that you have dove into and with your book, The Pulse Cure, like that information is in my mind is vital and huge. And I knew this 30 years ago when I was in college. Like this is the stuff that I studied, and you've taken it to a whole nother level than where I was at, but it's stuff that I understand and I want to make sure we bring to my listeners. And so give us a little bit about like your background. You've been a doctor forever, and then like what led you to looking specifically at the heart rate as, you know, the cure and the thing that's going to help us get out of this chronic disease issue that we've been in.
Yeah, so I've been a doctor. I'm a Norwegian doctor. I've been a general practitioner for 25 years, working all over Norway. And I have a good picture of what makes people sick and what makes people healthy. And as you know, it's the chronic low-grade inflammation making diseases in all our organs, you know, including the brain and making all this trouble. And by a row of kind of accidents or serendipity, I came across devices that could measure heart rate variability.
Mm-hmm.
So the first couple of years, I used ECG type device. And then after a couple of years measuring for myself with no guide and only having the curves from the readouts to interpret myself, I understood that Garmin had the same system in their watches. And then I started using it for my own health because I wanted to improve my own health, to live longer and be capable for the rest of my life. And then my publisher understood that I was doing this, you know, measuring the pulse, you know, a very weird thing to do for a doctor, actually, incredibly enough. And then they asked me if I wanted to write a book about this. And this is actually the world's first book that is a guidebook on how to use wearables to guide the lifestyle changes. And it's actually today is actually out in the US. This is the first day that it was released in the States. So yeah, and in Norway it has been on the bestseller list for 70 weeks now. So it has just been an incredible journey the last year and a half. So so in Norway now there's like a wave of people, you know, using watches and Oura rings and tracking their heart rate variability, which is a totally new concept also to a lot of doctors.
Right.
I myself did not know about heart rate variability until 5 years ago when I read it in Bessel van der Kolk's excellent book, The Body Keeps the Score. I read about heart rate variability for the first time. So I'm not sure why doctors don't know about the concept because it's so vital, as you say. I mean, it's the key to keep ourselves healthy, and that we have the metric on our own hands and we have our control of it, and not the doctor or the healthcare system. It's just an amazing opportunity to take charge of your own health, as you were saying.
Well, and so one of the things that you know, you sent me a YouTube presentation that I reviewed, and one of the things in there that you talked about that, and to help explain heart rate variability to people, it's not just that your pulse goes up and down as far as the rate of your pulse, but it's that your pulse is not necessarily a consistent, always exactly the same metronomic distance between each beat. And the interesting thing is my wife and I both have the same degree in cardiac rehabilitation. And we've sort of gotten into this argument a couple of times, and I just let it, okay, well, I've experienced different and just leave it at that. And it's not worth fighting over. But that she'll look at it like our kids, for instance, and she'll be taking their pulse if they're sick or something, they're anxious or whatever. And she's like, oh, it's erratic. It's not, and I'm like, well, it's supposed to be. They're breathing heavy. Because it's a reflector. It's our heart rate reflects our breathing and vice versa. And so if you hold your breath, your pulse is going to slow down, and that time between each beat is going to. And so it makes sense that as you're sitting there breathing in and out, your pulse is not going to be always a 100%.
Yeah, and particularly in children, I think they have a good connection to their vagus nerve,
Mhm.
and that will make for we call this sinus arrhythmia,
Mhm.
which is arrhythmia is like a bad rhythm, but it's a
Yep.
good rhythm.
Right.
It's a sign. It's a sign that you have a good contact with your vagus nerve that we know more and more now the latest years that is essential to our health and our
Yeah.
immune system and our recovery. So what is happening? Yeah, maybe I need to explain what heart rate variability is. Heart rate variability is that if you breathe in a relaxed state, then your pulse raises a little bit, measured
Mhm.
in milliseconds. And when you breathe out and there's less oxygen in the lungs, the heart rate will slow down just a little bit, a tiny bit, but it's measurable by the wearables, by the
Mhm.
smartwatches and so on. And we can also feel it ourselves. And the ancient Greeks, and Indian doctors and Chinese doctors, they knew very well that the way that the pulse were pulsing,
Yeah.
was a sign of the health of the patient.
Yeah.
Because if we are in a stress state, if our body's in a stress state, regardless of mental stress or physical stress or too much exercise, the wrong food and alcohol and what have you, then the body will be stressed and it will beat very, very steadily every heartbeat.
Yeah.
So this is how that the smartwatches can measure your stress balance to see if you are stressed and de-stressed and the balance between this. And this balance is what is making us sick these days in the modern world. We are not made for all this strain on our bodies and minds
Right.
and makes us sick.
Because it's almost like it's putting the cruise control on and just saying, I want you to run this no matter what happens. You just have to keep hitting this beat. Whereas it really wants to just go, oh, I'm going to slow down, and then I'll speed up a little bit, and then I'll slow down again. And it wants to have this variability to it. But having that constant stress, even though it may not be stress that we feel, because it could be hidden stress, right? It could be anything from infertility issues that you're dealing with that's always on your mind to, job stress that, maybe it's not a report's due, but it's just you've got so many things on you, and it's just that hidden layer that's just constantly driving that heart rate so that it never gets a chance to go into its own like, like relaxation mode.
Yeah, and you get used to the high speed. If it's like you're driving on the interstate and you're speeding and then you're slowing down to go into the gas station and
Mhm.
you feel it's very, very slow, even if you may be driving, at 40 miles an hour or so, it feels very slow.
Yeah.
So it's kind of in Norway we call it speed blindness.
Mm.
And this is what's happening. So only when you can really relax, you see that there's another level of relaxation than at least what that I thought. So now I have a lot more, I'm able to relax more than I used to do. And
Mhm.
I know the difference now. And of course, it's so much easier when you have the kind of speedometer on your wrist and
Right.
you can see your physiological speed, in some sense. So the heart rate reveals the stress on your body, and that
Right.
that we as doctor and the healthcare system has not detected this before now is just incredible.
Yeah. Well, because it's the true marker that's going to tell you, as you just described, like it's going to tell you, are you resting enough to be able to come back and perform at a higher level, or just be completely stressed. And so you may increase your level of performance or productivity or whatever your measurement is slowly over time, but to have those bigger jumps, you need to have the bigger jumps in rest time as well, or the bigger drops to a
Yeah.
solid rest time.
Yeah, and you need to find out that if you eat a bag of crisps or chips late at
Mhm.
night, your sleep is ruined.
Right,
And as you never thought about it, it didn't occur to you in the morning if you feel a bit, sluggish, that this was the reason. But when you have these devices, then you can detect that, okay, this is the reason. Every time I eat a bag of chips, then my sleep is bad,
right,
and then you discover this, that you were, and earlier I was not looking for it, so I didn't find it.
right.
But when you see it, then a lot of people then change their lifestyle, regarding sleep and alcohol and food, because there's so much food now, ultra processed food, that really makes us sick, that
Yeah,
we're not constructed to eat this.
right.
Mm.
Well, and so with those wearables, like whether it's a watch or a ring or, the information it gives us, like how much of a baseline would you suggest we get? Like, do we need to try and live a perfect life for like 2 weeks and then, we have a baseline of what's going on in our body, or like how quickly does that
Yeah,
tell us the information?
yeah, I think 2 weeks would give you a lot of information.
Yeah.
So what I normally I recommend people is at the first maybe month or so using the wearables, don't change anything, so that you
Okay.
have the baseline, so that you know, okay, this is where I'm going from.
Right.
And then after that, then check out, okay, what if I drink no alcohol for 2 weeks? What if I make sure I get good sleep, that I avoid food that I can't tolerate, and yeah, and then see what happens. And then you will see big changes, and particularly if you have been doing the wrong things, you will see big changes. And yeah,
And then it gives us that insight that like a lot of times we can't really tell necessarily. Like we know something either went wrong or went really well. Like, if you sleep really, really well for a night because you don't have anything to do the next day. And so you're just like turn the alarm off and just sleep until you wake up, which I know is uncommon for a lot of people in today's world. Like, but when you have that and you're like, oh, this gives us though the internal data of what's actually going on to match like maybe the theoretical side of like we can say, oh well, it was because I did this or because I did that. But like you're saying, we can now look at it internally and go, this is what's actually happening that's helping us either recover or hurting us in a negative way.
yeah. And you discover things all often by accident, that you see that, okay, you had a little bit cooler night in the
Mhm.
bedroom. Oh, and then you see, wow, my recovery was a lot better. And then you may have a very warm night, and maybe 5 degrees more, and then you see my recovery was a lot worse.
Mhm.
And so, suddenly you discover these patterns that you would not have thought about earlier. So yeah, it's like a journey into your own nervous system, into your own physiology, and it's
Yeah,
also kind of a gamification. As you get numbers for sleep, suddenly you get interested in, oh, let me try to get a better sleep, let me try to get 85 points, or whatever your wearable will show,
yeah,
instead of cutting down on sleep, to watch Netflix or whatever. So people actually think it's a lot of fun too. It's a fun way to get improve your lifestyle.
yeah. And so when you look at one of the things you talk about is there's this budget to your body, right? You've got the good things, the income, the bad things, the expenses. Like how easy is it to balance that once you start looking at what the data from the wearables is telling you? Like is it hard to figure out on your own? Do you need to go to a doctor to figure this out and have help with it? Or are the wearables giving us enough information that we can tweak it all on our own?
The wearables will tell you that something is stressing you. it's like a fever, you know, that if you come to me as a doctor and you have a fever, I only know that something is wrong, that there is some infection in your body, and then have to find out, is it from your sinus, is it from your kidneys or from your lungs or whatever.
Yeah.
And this is the same, that the wearable will tell you, okay, you're under some stress now, and you have to figure out what it was. And of course, you can listen to podcasts, you know, like the heart rate variability podcast or the Whoop podcast,
Hmm.
you know, that are only talking about heart rate variability, and pick up some information about that. Um, but and but you're a bit on your own. You have to figure this out yourself. Some of the factors are very easy to find. You know, you will
Hmm.
immediately find that 3 glasses of alcohol just ruins your
Yeah.
recovery, and some other things as well. And you may find that cold showers or cold plunges will make you recover a lot better. So some of the factors are very easy to see. You have a big impact. And then after you have kind of gotten that in order, then there's lots of small, you know, variations between what you eat or when you eat,
Right.
and so on. And one thing also that is very important for women is the menstrual cycle.
Mm.
That the week before menstruation, the heart rate variability will go down quite a lot as a symptom of a heavy load on their system, so that
Hmm.
they should not exercise as hard or work as hard, or put as much strain on themselves in that week before the menstruation starts. And this will also be very individual. So, and it seems like stress will make it worse. So if
Right.
you have stress from a lot of sources, the week before menstruation will be even worse. So if you get less stress in your life, this curve will even out
Okay.
quite a bit, actually.
Okay.
So so there's many things that people see, that they may have allergies. Now, at least in Norway, is the allergy season
Right.
for several trees, and they will see it immediately that it affects their heart rate variability.
Right.
So 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 it's kind of everything that stresses the body will be. It's like the heart is kind of the central monitoring station, you know,
Hmm.
from signals from all over the body,
Right.
and will react to any stress.
And if it's so, like you're talking about allergies, because that's going on here in Texas right now too. It's that time of the year, and anytime your body's on alert, so you're in the sympathetic, and you're you're not getting that chance to relax. You're on alert the whole time, and you're in that constant threat state. Like, you don't have the moments to really check out what else is going on in your body, because you're, whether it's, oh, I'm on high alert because I'm fighting the allergies or whatever this infection is. And a lot of times that's when other things can creep in and start to take hold of your life, in depending on how long you have to deal with that issue, right? Um, and it causes issues with sleep, right? Like,
Yeah.
because if you've got allergies and you're up sneezing all night and you're not sleeping well, and then that just sort of, that snowball starts rolling downhill. And
Exactly.
so that's again where when it comes to combating these things, like, I think so many people forget that, like, sleep is really the biggest thing you can do to help
Yeah.
get your body back, because of what it does, not just for your body for a chance to recover, but what it does for your heart rate, right?
Yeah. So, for example, if you then get some allergy and a strain on your body, then a certain amount of your disposable available forces will be spent on dealing with the allergies,
Mhm.
and so there will be less energy available for, responding to training, or working overtime and all these things. So because then you would just get worse, just as you say, that your sleep will get worse, and then you'll be more stressed by minor things in the day, and so on. So and what you then have to do is you may have to put in a power nap, of
Right.
half an hour. Maybe you have to go and do a cold plunge, or do cold showers more consistently in an
Right.
allergy season, and so on. So you will have to balance it with this body budget, as I call it. So
Yeah.
when there's more strain on your body, you have to find out how to lessen strains on other sides of your existence. Yeah.
And so that's like a big piece of the puzzle when it comes to like if you're doing anything athletic or doing any kind of exercise or training, whether it's just to stay in shape or as an athlete, you know, one of the things, because I actually had this happen on Saturday with one of the athletes that I train. He's a high school athlete, and he came out and he did his workout. Um, and I could tell halfway through it, he's frustrated. He's not hitting the times he wants to hit. And it was late in the day Saturday, and I knew he had spent the whole day working on his truck. His gas fuel lines had to be replaced, and he and his dad replaced the whole thing. And so I know his day was a lot different than normal. And I said, dude, you were stressed all, you were trying to figure this out. You're trying to get it done. You needed to get it done today. So you knew you were on a time crunch because you needed to do a lot of stuff, you know, the next day. And I said, you've used a lot of energy to do that. And so it's not so matter of, you know, I was trying to reassure him, like, I don't care about the times that you're hitting on these workouts. It's just get the work in, whatever your body's going to allow. It's going to be okay. You're still going to reap some rewards from it later on. It may just not be the perfect workout today because your body's not responding. And of course, then afterwards, I texted his mom and said, hey, heads up, he may be really upset when he gets home. Workout didn't go like he wanted. And she wrote back and she goes, oh, well, I figured it might not because he was up till 2 o'clock in the morning with friends.
All right. All
And
right.
I was like,
Yeah.
okay, you were up till 2 o'clock, then you got up at 8 o'clock, you worked all day on a strenuous activity, and you come, and of course your workout's not going to be
Yeah.
where you want it to be because your body's
Yeah.
just not able to respond.
And if he had a beer or two with his friends, you know,
Right.
and that this is where the wearables would show you very clearly that your kind of body battery is very low. You
Yep.
don't have the energy for this training, and then it's and you can't discuss with the wearables because they know some things about
Right.
your physiology that you have a hard time listening to yourself
Yeah.
because we are not equipped to listen to the body in this way. And this is the reason why it's so easy to get overstressed because all our senses, you know, our eyesight,
Mhm.
our sense of smell, or sense of touch and hearing and everything is developed through millions of years, and the only enemies came from the outside. You
Right.
know, it was you know, lions, of course, and snakes and fire and then food that was you know, not good or with bacteria in it. Um, so, but now in our day, the threat comes from our inside,
Right.
from the imbalance in the system, and we don't have a good sense of that. I'm quite sure that at least I cannot feel the difference. Like just when I'm sitting here now, I don't
Mhm.
know if I have 65 or 85 in pulse,
Right.
but that would represent a quite significant difference in stress level.
Mhm.
And we will not feel it. And if we had felt it, you know, through evolution, it would just be in the way of our other senses.
Yeah.
So this is how the wearables is kind of a substitute for a sense that we never needed to develop and that knows something about our physiology that we cannot feel ourselves.
Well, and it's not to say that it's made up because, you know, it's definitely forces that we feel on ourselves, but it's our mind determining that stress is there, right? Which is why some people can, like, you can have two different people go through the same situation and they're going to react differently because one person interprets the stress one way and another one does a different way. And
Yeah,
I would imagine if you had two people going through that, one's heart rate variability is going to be off the charts and the other one's going to be, I mean, it still may show
mm,
some stress through
yeah,
it, but it won't
yeah,
be, you know, as much, which then goes to how quickly you can recover and get back to that parasympathetic, right?
yeah, yeah, right. And also there would be a big difference between how good they are at feeling this themselves. So the ones that are in most danger of getting into a burnout and the fatigue situation, that's the same persons that are worse at feeling their own stress level than others. Others maybe feel immediately that I should not do this training today. But
Mhm.
other people would say that, okay, it's Thursday, I'm going to train no matter
Right.
what, you know.
Right.
And they may even feel guilty if they didn't do it.
Yeah.
And then often people say to me that when they see the results on the watch, that the watch telling them to rest, it's a relief because it's like another person, you know, or
Yeah.
thing telling them that you should relax. And that's a relief that this kind of responsibility is coming from another source,
Right.
because they would feel guilty and go through the exercise, you know, no matter what, you know.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, and it's a part of that is because we're so driven on achieving a goal, right? Or like, we hear that it's like, okay, we have to be productive, we have to set goals, we have to set big, huge goals, right? And go after and achieve them. But a lot of times the time constraint that's put on that is our own. We come up
Yeah.
with the time frame that we have to
Yeah.
hit that goal in. And
Mm.
so, why can't we relax that time frame and just say, oh, it's not going to happen today. Maybe tomorrow I can come after it because, my wearable's giving me this data that says it's not worth trying it today.
Mm. Yeah. You will not get the payback from the hard strain that you put on your body. And I used to be on the national team in kayaking and
Oh,
paddling.
cool.
So we were, and at that time, you know, 1984 to 1989, you know, like ages ago, we were just thinking, okay, the harder I train, the better.
Mhm.
So we were training the maximum effort every day,
Yeah.
uh, like the only way to get better. And now I see that a lot of people have, when they use heart rate variability, that they do a lot more zone 2 training
Mhm.
at the lower exertion level, and they get better.
Yeah.
So they train easier and get better. And maybe 80% of the training is in zone 2, and then they may have 20% in like zone 4 or 5. I'm not sure what your experience is on this.
No, I would say it's the same that I think a lot of people, uh, especially in the older generation, where it was just, nope, you're going to get better by just putting the hammer down and keep going, keep going, keep going. And now we're seeing that if you watch your body and understand what's going on internally and target the quality training for specific time periods, then you can back off and have, easier training. You still have to train. You can't expect to train 3 days a week and get the same results that somebody that's training 6 or 7 days a week. But understanding that quality and intensity of the training, um, and if you understand that and match that to where your body is, then your results leapfrog everybody else, is what I've seen.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, and also probably I've seen that if you have other stressors in your life, you have to take that into your
Mhm.
thoughts. That if you have a problem in your relationship, or if you're trouble at work, or anything, that you may not train as hard as you could when there was no trouble in the rest of
Right.
your life. So I think the wearables helps you to see the totality of your situation, and it's easier to decide when to push yourself and when to hold back.
Mhm.
And it seems like the holding back part is where the best athletes now are getting better, you know,
Yeah.
using cold water immersions and cryotherapy and rest and sleep
Right.
to get better.
Well, and do you think that the cold water therapy, and it's something that I do. I love the time of the year that we have a above ground pool in our backyard, and I love the time of the year that it's cold because I can jump in after an exercise and it's cold, like it's cold, and stay in there as long as I can. Usually it winds up being about 20 minutes, and then I'm out, and the feeling I get afterwards is euphoric. Um,
Yeah.
do you think that works because simple physiology, or do you think it works because we've put the rest of our life in this very homeostatic, we want to be at this one baseline degree all the time, our houses are set at this temperature, our cars are set at this temperature, our
Mm.
businesses are set at this temperature, and
Yeah. You're always at room temperature.
we're
Yeah.
always at, whatever room temperature is for you, it's always
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we run from our car to inside the grocery store or the restaurant when it's hot or cold because we don't want to be
Mm.
exposed to that temperature.
Yeah.
Do you think that's why that cold plunge like is seeing that rise in like just popularity?
Yeah, and because you can feel it, and you feel the euphoria, and you feel the calmness, because I can see, and that was one of the big surprises that I saw, that if you go into the cold, you get into the parasympathetic mode immediately, so that your pulse may be low and your heart rate variability better for like hours,
Mhm.
and so you feel calm and sharp because it triggers both adrenaline, and it calms down the nervous system, and it calms down the cytokines
Mhm.
that are released from inflammation. So after you have been running, there will be inflammation in your body,
Right.
and then when you go into the cold plunge, you put down that inflammation, and that makes it easier also to train the next day. And that
Yeah.
is particularly important for athletes, doing a technical sport. If you're a football player, a soccer player, ice
Mhm.
hockey player, where you need a lot of time on the pitch to learn the practice of it.
Yeah.
To have and then it's very useful to go into the cold, because then you can tolerate more time on the pitch,
Mhm.
because you lower down the inflammation part. But if you're doing strength exercise, then the cold may make for so that you will not get as strong.
Right.
At least according to Andrew Huberman.
Mhm.
Um, he has a very good podcast, as you
Yep.
probably know.
Yep.
Um, so if you want to get stronger after a strength training, then it's actually good with inflammation. It helps
Right.
building the muscle.
Right.
So, but it will also take more recovery time
Mhm.
until you can train again.
Yeah. Which is why a lot of people that are doing a lot of weightlifting, a lot of weight training, is they take that longer time period before they come back to that same muscle group to train it
Mm,
again because it's letting the inflammation work to build the muscle before you go and damage it again. Otherwise, you just stay in this chronic state of broken, which is basically what we've been talking about with the heart. We're staying in this chronic state of broken without
mm,
giving it a chance to slow down and come back. And one of the things that I remember hearing years ago, and I don't know if it's still, I'm sure it's something you've come across, if it's still something that people believe or if it's been, but that each heart has a certain number of beats to it, and then you've used them all up and you're done.
mm. Yeah,
You
at least
know,
I've heard that. I heard that, and I also heard that whether it's true, I'm not sure, but I've certainly heard it. And I also know that one of the biggest experts on heart rate variability says that if you are good at getting into the parasympathetic state, over a lifetime you save 350 million beats. I think
oh
his name
wow,
is Richard Gervitz, I think is his name. So there's a lot to be saved, So
yeah,
and I see that people with a poor foot fitness level, they will have to struggle for daily activities. So if you put, my patients, the ones who come to me from all kinds of diseases, and I ask them to walk fast for 100 meters, they would be short of breath there, and I can see that their bodies is always working in overdrive
mhm,
just for normal activities. And if you had done some exercise, it would manage that load easily.
yeah,
So it's so important to exercise, and that is a Norwegian study actually now showed that if you exercise moderately for 20 minutes a day, you get 11 more healthy years.
oh
You
wow,
don't live 11 years longer. Maybe you live 8 years longer, is what I think, but you also are healthy for a longer time,
right,
even longer time. So now that is just 20 minutes a day.
yeah,
That will pay off, and you will feel better, the rest of your life. So if you don't take the discomfort of exercise, you will be uncomfortable. You will
Right.
struggle. Your body will be sick.
Yeah. And and that's like the data would show you if you were doing that, if you changed, if you went for your month baseline and you're not exercising normally and you're not doing all these things, and and then you started to walk and got yourself up to 20 minutes a day, it may not show it instantly, but like I would think a year later, if you went and looked at the data, you would see that increase as you walked in the heart rate variability, and then a bigger decrease and a longer decrease afterwards than you were experiencing in your baseline time period, correct?
Yeah, yeah, I would think so. Definitely. And you would also, what is also important, because at least some of the watches will give you the VO2 max.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're in a poor fitness level, that will be very low. It may be
Yeah,
even, 25 or 28. And if you have such a low fitness level, then like any exercise will give you lactic acid, and you need a lot of time for recovery. And
yeah,
it will be a very slow. So VO2 max, improving the VO2 max, that is a number for how well are your mitochondria working, how good are your muscles working. That's a very slow number to increase. It
yeah,
takes a long time to
yeah,
get better. So you may think that, okay, now I've exercised for 3 months, I must be in a really good shape. No, it takes a lot longer time.
yeah,
But it also stays longer. So it's a slow process, but the fitness level will stay longer. So actually, I heard, I think it was Andy Galpin, he's an like physiology
yeah.
expert. He said that if you run for 4 minutes every other weeks, 30 minutes on and 30 minutes off,
Mhm.
4 minutes every other week, you will maintain your fitness level.
Yeah,
So it will not take much to maintain a level. So that's a good part about it.
right. Well, and that's one of the things that I tell all my athletes, and they get a little worried when I tell them, okay, now you have to take time off, like complete time off from the sport that you're doing. You can still do it like a pickup game or something if you want to play with friends. You don't have to just sit on your couch. Um, but if you're a runner and you're used to running, 5 or 6 miles a day, no running for a week or 2 weeks, depending on where we are in the schedule. And one of the things, and I know this from experience because I go through it myself, is just, they go, but what about I built my fitness all the way up to here. Like if I take time off, I'm gonna have to start over. I'm like, no, you're not starting over. Your body just
Mm.
needs that time to just
Yeah.
completely relax, completely reset,
Mm.
and then we start building again.
Yeah.
And you don't you while you mentally might think I've worked so hard to get to this point, what happens when I stop? But you allow your body to get that reset, and then you may not start from the same spot you stopped at, but you start from higher up the chain
Mm. Yeah.
than your previous starting session.
Yeah,
um,
absolutely. So it's almost like an oil tanker, it's going it takes a slow time to get the speed
mhm,
up, and once you have the speed up, it will stay there. It will have a momentum,
right.
and just like he said, just 4 minutes of 30 seconds on and off, it will keep the level. So
Yeah,
so that's good news, and so that is what we did not know as athletes, because I had to quit after 5 years. I had to quit because I had overstrained my arms,
yeah,
and I didn't have the intelligence to stop this training.
right.
So,
Well, and it's and the two things that I think that you've talked about that are things that most people don't, either they don't know enough about to know that it's the important thing as far as their body is concerned. um is your heart rate and your VO2 max, and they work together, because that is what is needed to the mitochondria. And
yeah,
if your mitochondria aren't happy, you're not happy. I mean, it's plain and simple.
yeah,
Research has shown that. I think we all know that in based on how we eat, what we drink, when we eat well, when we don't, like we see it
mm,
happen. And that's all at the mitochondria level is
yeah,
is what's happening. And so if we take care of those things, which really comes down to, okay, how do we take care of stress? How do we which a lot of times is how do we breathe better? How do we maintain that? How do we get ourselves into the parasympathetic? Um, and then if we do those two things, a lot of times it doesn't matter the other things that we do. That
Mm.
those are just like icing on the cake that adds more and more life to us. If we
Yeah.
do those two things, that's a strong enough baseline to take care of most issues, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And the good part is it will show in the heart rate. When you do
Right.
it right, you have this objective number that you can see that you are on the right track, you know. Uh, so uh, so that's you know, the beauty of it, the simplicity of it, you know,
Yeah.
the heart rate, you know, in compared to your breath.
Yep.
The very basic vital science tells us doctors and as people, you know, now that it's accessible, so much information that is available
Mhm.
at the cheap price, and
Yeah.
it also it's so important also that it gives the power back to you and not
Right.
to the doctor and not to me,
Yeah.
you know. So yeah, you can take charge of your own health in a whole new way. And it's also nice that because big pharma, you know, has so there's so much money in sick people.
Yes, there is.
It's yeah. So follow the money and to wait until people get sick, you know, and maybe 30 years of medications, you know, there's
Yeah.
so much money.
Yep.
And now in the wearable industry, there's now money into keeping you healthy. So I'm very optimistic about this, at least so that the people who want to take charge of their own health can do it
Yeah.
with these wearables and avoid getting sick.
Well, and I remember researching several years ago. The numbers may be different, but the if you can live to 50, and it doesn't really matter what you did before, if I remember correctly, it doesn't really matter if you've had issues before, but if you can hit 50 with zero chronic disease around that like 48 to 52 time frame of your life, if you can go through those 3 or 4 or 5 years with zero chronic disease going on, your inflammation's it, then your chances of making it to 90 are are exponentially larger than somebody with one chronic disease or two. And if I remember correctly, if you've got three chronic diseases at 50, like your chances of making it to 65 are almost zero.
Mm. Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
and I can see that, and we see it as doctors, you know, all the way from they are 45 and start picking up one inflammation-based disease after another.
Mhm.
Just keep loading on, and these are diseases that we don't need to have. You know,
Right,
they're avoidable.
right,
So if you did these changes that I'm talking about in the postcard in the book, then you would fix this. You know, you
right,
would get good cells, good mitochondria, a good nervous system, good recovery. So because our immune system needs to work properly,
right.
and if we are too much in the stress state, we are keeping down the immune system all the time.
Yeah,
It will not repair cancer cells. You know, cancer comes in our body every day.
right.
You know, and our immune system is working all the time, finding the cancer cells and taking them out.
Yep,
And if you are living in a way that compromises your immune system, they will at some point not discover the cancer cells, and it will multiply and develop into a cancer.
right.
So and this is possible to fix, and also and heart rate variability is at the core of this. So you can
Mhm.
Google, you know, cancer and heart rate variability, and you will see lots of findings.
Right,
So it will affect the risk of getting cancer. If you get cancer, it will affect the prognosis. And if you get rid of the cancer in the first place, it will tell you something about the chance of getting the cancer back
right.
after some time. So and that is because heart rate variability is a number of the strain on your whole system.
Yeah,
Um, and then you can it's connected to dementia and Parkinson and stroke and actually 9 out of the 10 deadliest diseases in America, and then probably of course the rest of the Western world is connected in some way to heart rate variability.
right. So if you're wearing one of these wearables and you're tracking it, it's almost like if you see a sign, it's like the engine light going off in your car that most of us nowadays, because the way the technology is with our vehicles and the engines is like we the engine light goes off and we're like, oh, well, it's all computerized. We can't tell. We don't know what's going off. We have to take it somewhere and they can plug in their computer and it'll tell them what's going on. And so the heart rate, if you're wearing a wearable and you see a difference in it, you may not know immediately what that causes, but you know something's going on
Yeah.
and you need to address it. You
Yeah,
need to look back and go, what did I do wrong?
yeah. It's like you see this oil lamp, coming on, that
Mhm.
just tells you, okay, you need to fix this. And then if you ignore that after some time, you get a more serious oil lamp coming on,
Yeah,
that now you stop immediately,
yeah,
if you continue driving, you're destroying your engine. And the wearables are kind of like that because I'm sure that you would not get into a fatigue or burnout situation with a wearable without them warning you for weeks and months ahead. They
yeah,
would tell you a long time before that this is not sustainable, your
right.
lifestyle now. It's and that is also why a lot of people that are in the fatigue situation has been so happy with the wearables because it makes it so much easier to maneuver or navigate out of the fatigue situation because it's a lot harder if you are in a fatigue situation. That's usually after years of too much stress,
Mhm.
and your whole HPA axis, your adrenal gland is really worn out, and it takes a long time to get better.
Yeah,
And with the wearables, it's easier. So they are particularly happy
yeah,
about using the wearables and the strategies in the pulse cure. Yeah.
right. And that's like one of the things the immediate thing that came to my mind is that so many people we don't take enough vacation, especially in the US. And when we do take vacation, we just have to pack it with so many things. Like we have to go somewhere to a destination, which that's stressful in itself to travel and getting somewhere. But then we pack it with, oh, well, this day has to be packed with whether it's an amusement park or excursions from a cruise or all these things that we get back and we often say we need a vacation from our vacation because we never really let our bodies just go to nothing and
Yeah.
just sit and be calm. And when we get away from work, we need to those things are great to go and have those experiences, but we need to do them in the right way, in the right manner, to
Yeah.
also have the relaxation time to where we actually let ourselves
Mm.
relax and recoup and regenerate.
Yeah. And our brains is like predicting machines. So if you go on a holiday and you just think that a holiday is relaxing, and you just think that way, then the wearables will tell you different. It will tell
Mhm.
you that there's too much heat, too much alcohol in the evening, heavy meals,
Yep.
lots of activities. But since your mind is so made up that holiday is a relaxing thing, then you come back and you think, okay, I must be relaxed. I can work hard and train, and the wearable would tell you that, that this is not true.
Right.
So our what we think, colors so much our how to say our what we think is happening, our
Yeah.
beliefs.
Yep. So how can people, since the book is out in the US, but if it anywhere, like I'm assuming it's available on Amazon.
Yeah, on
Um,
Amazon and Barnes and Noble and everywhere. It's also an Audible audiobook and also an ebook, but now today is the first day actually getting out on a paperback.
awesome. Awesome. So the Pulse Cure, and then how can people connect with you? Do you have a social media that you tend to put more information out on so they can stay up to date on what's going on?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. I'm a doc underscore Torkil on Instagram. I also have a social website called thepulsecure.com where you can see the video that you were
Mhm.
referring to, and you can there's a social network there of other people. It's almost like Facebook, very similar
Right.
to Facebook. You can put out images from your curves that you see on your phone or your watch and ask questions. And there's a blog there. So webinars, there are a lot of information because there are not so many places informing you about these things and where you can learn about it.
Right. Well, and as an athlete, like I've understood how important the heart rate is to training, to making sure your body's going to respond properly. And just like with so many things from athletics, it the same thing it happens with the normal population that's not quote unquote an athlete. You know, our bodies are still made for movement. They're still made for activity, and we get joy from that, right?
Yeah.
It's
yeah,
can
and
be a different activity, but
yeah, and absolutely. And I see that if you're in a poor shape, you should think that you should just feel refreshed after the activity. You shouldn't train as hard that you feel worn out and take days to recover.
Yeah.
You should start at the level that is very, very, very easy, and then go from there slowly.
Yep. Well, I want to thank you so much, Torkil, for being a guest on Accomplish Your Health podcast. It's been great. I loved the conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much, and it's so good to be talking about to somebody who knows so much about this, so we can have like an equal conversation. You know,
Yeah.
so often I have to explain everything, you know, and
Right.
so that's been a real joy. So thanks a lot.
Thanks for checking out the Confidence Through Health podcast. Please subscribe, post a review, share this episode with those you love who need a little extra help with their health journey. Visit allinhealthandwellness.com to learn more about the coaching programs that I provide. All episodes are produced by the Social Media Cowboys, your source for all online marketing needs. Go to socialmediacowboys.com for more information.